Welcome to the third video for Form 5 Biology. Let's study biology together. To receive notification of new biology videos, please click the subscribe button and hit the bell below to subscribe. In this video, we'll be discussing a topic in Biology Form 5, that is Chapter 1, Transport of Water in Plants, by popular request. And there will be a memory aid to help you remember some of the things that you'll study here. So let's get started. So here is an essay question that is similar to the ones that came out in the exams concerning transport of water. The diagram shows a tree transporting water up its stem during a sunny day. Explain the pathway of water from the roots to the leaves. 10 marks. In this essay question, we have to explain the forces and processes that are responsible for helping the water move from the roots to the stems and then to the leaves. And we'll also be talking about the process of transpiration that creates the force called transpersonal pool. So this is quite a popular exam question. We can divide our answer into 4 parts according to the 4 stages for the movement of water. First, the first stage is the water will move from the soil to the root by osmosis. So we have to explain that process. And then from the root to the xylem vessels in the stem, root pressure is involved. We have to explain how it occurs. That is by the process of active transport of mineral ions and osmosis. So root pressure is the force, but the processes that are responsible to produce this force are active transport of mineral ions and osmosis. These are the processes. Right. So root pressure causes the water to move into the xylem vessels. And then from the xylem vessels, the water will flow upwards. So this is the third stage. And we have to explain capillary action and transpersonal pool. But first we have to explain capillary action for the flow of water up the stem first, which is made up of 2 different forces, cohesion and adhesion. The next stage is the 4th stage. Explain how the water moves out from the leaves through transpiration and the creation of the transpersonal pool that helps to draw water from the xylem vessels up to the leaves. That is the 4th stage. That means it's talking about the processes that occur in the leaves. Before we discuss the movement of water in the plant, we have to revise the concept of osmosis. Here is a container containing 2 solutions separated by a semi-permeable membrane. A has a lot of water molecules in it, which is colored blue here, small water molecules, and B has less water molecules, but it has some solutes instead, which is the sucrose solution. The solute is the dissolved substances, like sucrose or ions. So which solution has a higher concentration of water? Yes, it's solution A. Solution A has a higher concentration of water than solution B. Which solution has a higher concentration of solutes? Yes, it's B. B has a higher concentration of solute compared to A. So when a solution has high concentration of water, it will have low concentration of solute. And if it has low concentration of water, it means that the concentration of solute is higher. Now, which solution is dilute and which is concentrated? So A is called a dilute solution and B is called a concentrated solution. So dilute solution has a high concentration of water compared to a more concentrated solution. Finally, the biological term for dilute solution is hypotonic solution, and for concentrated solution is hypertonic solution. So we must always remember the rule in osmosis. Water always diffuses from the dilute solution to the concentrated solution, or from hypotonic solution into hypertonic solution, like this way. So at the end of this experiment, the level of water in A will decrease and that in B will increase, because water diffuses from A, which is more dilute, or which is a hypotonic solution, into B, which is a more concentrated solution or a hypertonic solution. So this is the end result. The level of water in A will decrease, the level of water in B will increase. So we begin to discuss the movement of water from roots to the leaves by discussing the events that occur in the root first of all. So this is a diagram of the longitudinal section of the root. So this is the soil solution here, and this is the part of the root. These are the root cells, and the epidermal cells of roots may have root hairs. So we begin by discussing and mentioning which part has a solution that is hypotonic or hypertonic to the other solution. So soil solution here is hypotonic or more dilute compared to the cell set of the root hair cells. Now this is because root hair cells take in mineral ions by active transport, so that the concentration of mineral ions is very high here. So the soil solution by comparison is more dilute than the cell set of this root hair cell, which may have a lot of ions and other dissolved substances in the vacuole. So soil solution is hypotonic, more dilute, compared to the cell set of the root hair cell here. Thus, there's a concentration gradient. There's more water, higher concentration of water in the soil than in the cell. Thus, water diffuses from the region of high concentration of water in the soil into the root hairs by osmosis. Now this cell receives water from the soil and its cell set will be diluted, making it hypotonic compared to cell B. So water will diffuse from cell A into cell B again by osmosis. And then cell B will become hypotonic compared to cell C, which has not received any water. So water will diffuse from B to C by osmosis again, and this process repeats itself until the water reaches the endodermis. So in conclusion, for this part, water diffuses from the soil to the root hairs by osmosis and diffuses from one cell to the next, all by osmosis, until it reaches the endodermis, which is just next to the xylem vessel. We have discussed the diffusion of water from the soil into the root hairs by osmosis, and the diffusion of water from one root cell to the next by osmosis until the endodermis. So what happens in the endodermis is different from the root cells here. So in the endodermis, the cells will carry out active transport of mineral ions, where mineral ions are pumped into the xylem vessel using energy. So the mineral ions will be transported from the endodermis into the xylem vessels. So why does the plant actively transport mineral ions into the xylem vessels? This is to make the xylem vessels more concentrated with the mineral ions or solutes, so that the xylem vessels will contain fluid that is hypertonic, more concentrated than the cell set of this endodermis. This is to ensure that water diffuses into the xylem vessels by osmosis from region of higher concentration of water in the endodermis into the xylem vessels, which have higher concentration of solutes, which is hypertonic to the endodermal cells. So if mineral ions are not pumped into the xylem vessels, there will be no condition of where the xylem vessels are hypertonic, then water cannot diffuse in by osmosis. Therefore, mineral ions have to be pumped in by active transport to make sure that xylem vessels become hypertonic to the cell sap of these endodermal cells. Then water diffuses in by osmosis. So these two processes of active transport of mineral ions and osmosis creates a force called the root pressure, which is an upward force that pushes the water up the xylem vessels continuously. So root pressure is a force created by the endodermal cells when it carries out active transport of mineral ions and then osmosis, involving the diffusion of water into the xylem vessels. Let's observe an animation showing the water molecules moving from the root hair into the root cells and past the endodermis into the xylem vessel and up here. The red arrows here represent the process of osmosis of water, where water diffuses from one cell to the next by osmosis, and the green arrow represents the root pressure force that is produced, caused by active transport of mineral salts and osmosis, where water diffuses into the xylem vessels and is pushed up the xylem vessel. So let's observe the animation. So water molecule moves from the root hairs into the root cells and then up the xylem vessels in the stem. Before we discuss the next stage of the movement of water up the plant, we have to know something about the polarity of the water molecule. The water molecule is a polar molecule, meaning that it has uneven distribution of charges. Let's take a look at the water molecule shown here, H2O. So this oxygen atom here is very electronegative, and it pulls the electrons of hydrogen closer to itself. Thus, it has a negative charge, a partial negative charge, whereas the two hydrogen atoms have partial positive charges instead, because the electrons of hydrogen are pulled closer to oxygen. Therefore, it's considered a polar molecule because of the uneven distribution of charges and because it has one negative end and two positive ends. Polar molecules can stick to each other because the negative ends can attract the positive end of another polar molecule. Thus, water molecules tend to stick to each other with negative ends attracted to positive ends and vice versa. Now let us discuss the movement of water in the stem. The movement of water in the stem is caused by capillary action, which is a force that enables the water to move up the tiny xylem vessels in the stem. It is made up of two forces. Capillary action is made up of the force of cohesion and the force of adhesion. Cohesion means the force of attraction between like molecules. For example, between two water molecules. Here in this picture, you see a long continuous column of water molecules that are attracted to each other and pulled up like a single strand like this inside the xylem vessel. So if you look at two water molecules, the hydrogen end of one water molecule that is positively charged here, the hydrogen end, is attracted to the oxygen end of another water molecule that is negatively charged. So the positive charge on the hydrogen atom causes it to be attracted to the negatively charged end of the water molecule here. Thus, in this way, the water molecules are able to stick to one another, and when they are pulled up, they will be pulled up as one continuous water column. Next, the force of adhesion means the force of attraction between different types of molecules. For example, between the water molecule and the xylem wall, there's a force of adhesion that causes the water molecule to stick to the wall of the xylem vessel. So this makes it easier for the water molecule to move upwards to the leaves. So this is capillary action, a force that causes the water to move up the xylem vessels. We have already discussed how water moves in the xylem vessels in the stem, and that is by using the forces of root pressure, secondly, capillary action, and thirdly, transpirational pull. So what is transpirational pull? It is a major force that is like a suction force that pulls water up the xylem vessels from roots to leaves. How is it created or produced? It is produced when transpiration occurs in the leaves. Let's have a look at this picture of a leaf. Here are the palisade mesophyll cells, and the spongy mesophyll cells are below the palisade mesophyll cells. Let's look at one of these cells, A. So during the day, transpiration occurs in the leaf and in this cell. Water from this cell will evaporate and become water vapor in the intercellular air spaces here. Next, the water will diffuse out through the stoma into the air or atmosphere, which has a lower concentration of water than the leaf. Thus, transpiration involves two processes: evaporation of water from the cells and then diffusion of water out from the leaf. But what happens to the cell that loses the water, like this cell A? Its cell sap will become hypertonic compared to the adjacent cell. So there's a difference in concentration of water, and water will diffuse from cell B into cell A by osmosis. This will make cell B hypertonic compared to another adjacent cell here. So water will diffuse from this adjacent cell into cell B by osmosis. So this starts off a chain reaction in which water will move from one cell to the next by osmosis when transpiration occurs. Finally, it reaches the xylem vessels, and in the xylem vessels, the water will diffuse out from the xylem vessels into the more hypertonic cells by osmosis again. Thus, water will be drawn from the roots up the xylem vessels into the leaves, and it will diffuse from one cell to the next by osmosis, and the water will be lost, may be lost through transpiration to the atmosphere. So this creates a transpirational stream, which is the flow of water or movement of water from the roots to the stem and to the leaves until the water is lost through transpiration. It also creates a force called the transpirational pull, which pulls the water up the xylem vessels from roots to leaves. So as long as transpiration occurs, there will be the creation of the transpirational pull force. to draw water up the plant from the roots to the leaves. Let us summarize what we have discussed concerning the movement of water in the plant from roots to leaves. We have to start discussing from the soil. So in the soil solution, the water will diffuse from the soil solution into the root hair cells by osmosis. Water also diffuses from one root cell to the next in the root by osmosis until it reaches the endodermis. At the endodermis, root pressure, a force called root pressure, is produced. This is caused by two processes: active transport of mineral ions and osmosis. Where in active transport of mineral ions, endodermis will pump in the ions into the xylem vessels using energy to make it hypertonic. Thus, water will diffuse into the xylem vessels by osmosis. So root pressure is caused by the active transport of mineral ions into the xylem vessels, and then osmosis, where water diffuses into the xylem vessels. Next, in the stem, what are the forces that cause the water to move up the stem? There are three forces: transpersonational pool, capillary action, and root pressure. Capillary action is a force that is produced by two forces, cohesion and adhesion. In cohesion, water molecules are attracted to one another, and this makes them stick together and form a long continuous water column that is pulled up to the leaves. Adhesion is the force of attraction between different types of molecules, for example, between the water molecule and the wall of the xylem vessel. The water will move up to the leaves, and another force that helps it to be pulled up to the leaves is the transpersonational pool, which is produced in the leaves when transpiration occurs. Transpiration occurs and then causes the water to diffuse from one leaf cell to the next by osmosis. And it also causes water to be drawn up from the xylem vessels into the leaves. So transpirational pool causes water to be drawn up from the roots to the stem and to the leaves. Here is a very good memory aid to help you remember the three forces that help in the movement of water from roots to leaves. Ronaldo pressures Captain Ace to transfer Paul. Ronaldo. So think of football. Right. Ronaldo pressure stands for root pressure. Captain Ace stands for capillary action. And the last one is transfer pool, transpirational pool. So this is a very good memory aid, as it can help you to remember the three forces that help in the movement of water from roots to leaves. I suggest that you write it out and make a picture out of this, and then paste it on the wall where you can constantly review it, so that it will be pushed into your long-term memory, and you'll be able to use this memory aid when you need it. So this memory aid may be very good for those who like to play football or who are interested in the football matches. That's all for this video. In the next lesson, we will be discussing a topic from Chapter 2 from 5 on locomotion. That is, we'll be discussing muscles, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, and joints. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.